This film is really a Lifetime movie with a bigger budget.
Bing bong!
We've gotten some interesting horror movies this year, but I think Cuckoo might be one of the weirdest that I've seen so far. And I don't really know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Cuckoo is the story about a girl and her little sister who go to stay at a retreat that her dad becomes a part of because her little sister has been having these seizures, and a doctor at the retreat is running a program where he claims he can help with those seizures. Turns out that some of the things going on at this hospital, hotel, retreat area are a little bit strange. About as much as I can say about the film here, the story of this movie, without starting to give too much away. Right off the bat, I want to say that this is not a bad movie. Like, it's really well made, it's pretty well acted, it's sometimes very well shot. Some few cinematic moments really stand out in terms of cinematography. I was thinking about how do I describe a film like this, and really, to anyone out there who has seen Lifetime movies, this film is really a Lifetime movie with a bigger budget. That is the best way I can describe it. If you like Lifetime movies, which, don't get me wrong, some of them are good, then I think there's a good chance you like this movie, because it goes into sort of a bizarre sci-fi thriller direction. But at the same time, your enjoyment of this film is going to be based purely on how willing you are to go along with a premise that just gets more and more goofy and essentially starts to work in comedic moments, which I couldn't really tell if they were on purpose or if it was just, I don't know, like they didn't realize some of the things in this movie were just going to be kind of hilarious. All the way up until the way this film ends, it has a really comedy-centric ending sequence, which I think is meant to be more scary and uncomfortable, but really it's just funny because it's so goofy. That's the best way to describe a movie like Cuckoo, is that it's just goofy. I'm not really sure if that's what they're going for, because a lot of this film is built around this sort of mysterious, what's going on at this resort, something's not right sort of vibe. But as the film goes on, it just sort of gets sillier and sillier and has a lot of fake outs for the sake of fake outs. And don't get me wrong, Dan Stevens is really the highlight of a lot of this movie, as is the main actress in this film. But I just don't know about this one, man. I think if I had not been to this movie with a friend, let's say I was just watching this movie on Netflix, I think I turn it off. And I think if I had gone to the theater on my own, I think I'd get up and leave. I would say with at least 45 minutes left in this movie, I just didn't really care about where the story was headed or what was going to happen to any of the characters, or happy ending, sad ending, whatever. I just didn't really care. I thought that it wasn't even necessarily boring. It was just so silly, and not really in a good way, that I just wasn't really interested the longer the film went on. If you're someone who likes horror movies, then I think this is probably worth checking out, which I think this is the weirdest part about the movie. I wouldn't necessarily say, like, don't see it, because if you like horror movies and you like sci-fi thriller-ish kind of stuff, then it's probably worth checking out, because you might enjoy it more than I did. There's just a lot in this film where it doesn't seem like the point was for it to be funny, but it's just funny. And like, there was a guy in our audience a few seats down who was just like laughing every couple of minutes. Like, don't get me wrong, we were like, all right, dude, you gotta shut up, it's not really that funny. But there are a lot of justified laughter in a film that I'm not really sure if it knows what it wants to be. In one sense, they kind of go for it, they kind of go really bizarre, but in the other sense, it's like, if you're gonna go bizarre, you should just go all the way with it. And it felt like they kind of pulled up a little bit short as the movie went on, and didn't really get as insane as they probably could or should have, with a premise that is as ridiculous as this movie's premise is. And really, I think I just left a little bit disappointed. There have been some great horror movies this year, but we've also had some that I think all are suffering from this very similar issue of wasted potential. Movies that had interesting premises, movies that had a lot of potential as they were going, as the story was developing, but then by the time the credits roll, you're just sort of there like, wanted a little bit more. Or in the case of this movie, I wanted a lot more. I just didn't think that they really made the most of what they could have done in a film like this. It's just a downer. It's not a bad movie. It's a little silly, it's goofy, it's fun, I guess, and it's weird, and I like that kind of stuff when it's intentional. I don't think this movie was intentionally supposed to be funny. This is not Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. This is not a film, like Jordan Peele has several horror movies that all have comedic elements. It didn't really think any of this was supposed to be funny. Maybe one or two moments, but a lot of it I think was supposed to be serious, but it just came off really goofy. And for me, that didn't work. If you check out Cuckoo, you might actually enjoy all of those same moments that I thought were a little bit too dumb, which I know in horror movies generally you need characters to be a little bit stupid, but in this one it just didn't quite work.